Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to begin taking a look at some more 2022 figures, as we have the very first few Schleich figures to release for 2022. Now, I do only have 2 figures right now from the Schleich line. The other 3 were not available when I was able to acquire this one and one other, so as of right now, we only have 2 to review, but as soon as the other 3 are available, I will have them up on the channel right away. But this one, as you can quite clearly see, is the brand new Parasaurolophus, and this is a very cool figure that has been released in the Schleich line a few times prior, so it's nice to see a newer version and more updated version. I believe the older one's been retired for quite some time, so it was about time that I think they released another one, and this one is a very interesting take, honestly, on a Parasaurolophus. You usually see Parasaurolophus kind of depicted in more like a thinner, kind of sleeker type of a look, sort of. But this one absolutely sports some pretty big girth to it. Like, it really looks like a large lumbering animal with the way that Schleich has sculpted this out, specifically in the stomach region. Like, you can see this is an extremely well-fed version of a Parasaurolophus. It almost has somewhat of a pot belly to it. And you can just see the skin here being scrunched up. Like, if you turn it to the side, you can see the stomach extended here and see how scrunched up that skin is. Even over here, you can just see in general how massive this Parasaurolophus is as far as the way that Schleich has portrayed it here in this brand new figure. And I really like the paint scheme of this one as well, actually. And they have applied that trademark Schleich dark wash, which I love, absolutely love when they include that on their figures. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at this brand new Parasaurolophus right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Parasaurolophus, you can see that it is completely overloaded with really nice skin texture. It does have some scale detail to it, which definitely looks nice, but I feel like the majority of the figure has more of like a skin texture-like look, almost like elephant-like skin to it rather than scaling, which again, it does have scales and everything, but it just really has a lot of skin detail to it, a lot of cracks and crevices within the skin of the Parasaurolophus. You can see the majority of the face here is like a brownish coloration. We have a beautiful dark wash that ties all of the coloration together. You can see some reddish tones that come down here from the upper side of the animal's head that run along the crest, basically here, along the edge and the underside, but then it tapers off before we get to the end of the crest, and you can see it transitions back to that brown. And due to the dark wash, you can see each and every crack and crevice that is sculpted out on this Parasaurolophus quite beautifully. You can see that the crest itself sports a really nice greenish tone. It runs down here from the beak all the way up the entire course of the crest, and it also has a tan wash that has been applied, almost making the Parasaurolophus look like it's kind of dirty, but at the same time allowing those greenish tones to shine quite nicely, which I do actually quite like that because it adds some nice color variation to the figure, and also these dinosaurs would not be absolutely perfectly clean, so whether this is meant to imply just alternate coloration of the dinosaur itself, that's pretty cool because it, adds some nice color variation to the crest, or if it's meant to give it kind of like a dusty, dirty appearance, that works perfectly as well. You can see the nostrils are sculpted out up here, and you can also, again, due to that kind of tannish wash, see the detailing quite nicely there in the beak. The beak is the same green that we see pretty much everywhere until you come to the underside. Then you can see it's that, again, light tannish brown, and yet again that wash really makes all of that detail pop. The eyes are painted with a black, and they do have a little bit of a glossy appearance, but not super glossy. It's definitely not as glossy as I've seen in the past when it comes to Schleich figures. You can see, again, it's pretty much the same thing over here on this side. I feel like there's a little bit more red down around the eye on this side, more so than what we had seen on the previous side, which is something that definitely could be the case when it comes to dinosaurs like this. Like, maybe one side of the head would look a little different coloration-wise than the other side. I see that all the time when it comes to different animals that are alive today, so again, it could be something that you'd see on dinosaurs as well. As you move down into the neck, you can continue to see lots and lots of cracks and crevices, really nice skin texture, and again that dark wash, making sure every ounce of detail just pops throughout the course of the animal. You can also see a little bit of hanging skin right here in the lower jaw, and kind of like some saggy skin running down the course of the throat, some nice creasing right here at the bottom of the lower jaw connecting to the throat. And you can also kind of see like some slight tensing to the neck right there. Really smooth transition when it comes to that darker red and the way it transitions down into that tan. And then as you get here close to the bottom of the neck, you start to see some of this brown pickup. And it's kind of like a very splotchy brown, but I really, really like it. And I think the way it's applied looks super nice and super natural looking on the course of the entire figure. As you move back, that splotchy brown almost becomes like a striping effect that runs down the course of the arm. And you can also see again that the arm is held into the body, showing that the Parasaurolophus is walking along. You can kind of get an idea of what the shoulder blade looks like there, sort of protruding from the skin. Lots of creasing in that front arm, as well as a very nicely sculpted foot. The nails are painted with a gray. And again, the figure is completely overloaded with that dark wash everywhere, but you can see how those brown kind of splotches turn into stripes running down the course of the arm. And right here in the stomach region is that area I was talking about earlier, where you can really see how the skin is kind of bunching up, showing off that pretty massive girth of the Parasaurolophus, and showing how that elbow kind of pushing into the stomach is bunching the skin up kind of in between the elbow and the knee right there, showing off again the very well-fed aspect of this Parasaurolophus. And you can again see how nice that skin texture is running the entire course of the figure up here toward the back. You can also see again that really nice reddish tone up there runs along the entire length of the dinosaur all the way out through the tail, so that red is pretty abundant on the upper part of the spinal column area of the dinosaur. And then you can also see again more of that splotchy brown, as well as some scales and stuff showing up here and there, like some kind of larger scales that you sort of see here and there. And then you see more of that splotchy brown that kind of has like a striping effect again running down the thigh and also out onto the tail. You can see some muscle definition displayed there in the thigh and the calf as you move down the course of the leg. And then you get down into the foot sculpt. The foot sculpt again looks pretty nice. And we have the very nicely painted nails with a gray. And then we move back up into the tail. You can see the skin stretching pretty nicely off of the tail with this leg taking a step forward. And you can again see every ounce of detail is really nicely shining throughout the entire figure thanks to that dark wash. You can also see as we lead out the length of the tail that kind of splotchy brown tapers off, and then we have nothing but that light brown tail, and then the red to the upper side. Pretty thick looking tail, honestly, as you lead out to that tip, and then you again have the very nice dark wash kind of tying all of the detail together. You can see the underside also sports that really nice dark wash, as well as a plethora of skin texture and detailing. If you take a look over at this side, you can see the skin stretching pretty nicely here. There's not really too much going on as far as the neck region. You can see the head is turned slightly to the right. The neck is slightly turned to the right as well, but not really too much. As you lead down the neck, you start to see that splotchy brown pick up a little sooner on this side, more so than what we had seen on the initial side, as this side here picks up not long after we leave the head down into the neck, whereas the other side was a little bit further down. So again, showing some difference between this side and that side, which again I do like. And then you can see more of that really nice skin detail running down into the body of the dinosaur. You can also see the shoulder blade right there. As you move down the course of the leg, you can see this leg is planted, holding the entire front half of the dinosaur up as the dinosaur is taking a step forward. You can see more of those stripes running down that arm right there. And then over here on this side, you can see a little bit more of the stomach region than what we had seen on the initial side, because these legs are further apart than the legs are on the opposing side. So you don't see that kind of like gut of the Parasaurolophus scrunching up so much over here like we had on the other side, but you can definitely see a little bit of a saggy gut there on the Parasaurolophus. And again, more of that splotchy brown, which that brown could easily have looked like paint, not so much like body color, but Schleich has done a great job of actually applying that to the figure and making it 100% look like body color, which is just super appealing visually here. Looking at the figure, you can see actually even a little hint of like an orangish brown here, or a reddish brown in both the shoulder and the thigh, which I didn't pick up on previously. And then you can see again some nice muscle definition displayed in both the thigh and calf running down the course of the leg down into that foot sculpt. And again, both feet are planted here. As far as the rear of the dinosaur goes, you can see again the nails are painted quite nicely as you lead up here into the tail, and you can see that there is a pretty nice curve to the tail. Nothing super dramatic, but definitely a pretty good curve right there. And again, that brown tapers off, and the dark wash ties everything together quite beautifully. So definitely another really nice Parasaurolophus from the Schleich line. and a pretty darn fun figure to start as far as these reviews for the 2022 lineup from Schleich goes. As far as the size goes, this Parasaurolophus definitely has a pretty good size to it. So for a length from the tail to the snout, you're looking at about 9 3/4 inches or around 15 centimeters or close to 15 centimeters. And then for a height, I think maybe the crest would be the highest point. So you're looking at just shy of 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And then for the tip of the tail, pretty much the same area, maybe a little tiny bit taller than what we see on the crest. For a size comparison, there is one of the most iconic Schleich figures, I would think, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, but obviously this is the Shadow Rex version, which is a newer release from Schleich, but you can get a good idea roughly of what the size of the Parasaurolophus is, I think, there, in comparison to our Shadow Rex. And if not, then we will bring in some more figures here, as we have the Acrocanthosaurus, which might be one of the most iconic Schleich figures ever, I think, at this point, just because it was a pretty controversial figure for its time. But again, if you happen to have this figure here, you'll have a pretty good idea, I think, roughly of what the size of the Parasaurolophus is. And then we also have the newer Tyrannosaurus from Schleich. This was the last Rex as far as a new sculpt goes that was released from Schleich, showing you that this Rex is definitely a little bit bigger than the Parasaurolophus. But also, we have the older Parasaurolophus here from Schleich in comparison to the newer version. So you can see this newer one is definitely a good bit larger than the older one, but you can also see again how the older one had more of like a slender design to it, whereas the newer one has a lot beefier of an appearance to it. And then the final comparison is the same sculpt, I think, as the previous Parasaurolophus, but there was a larger version prior to that one, so this is going back even further as far as the Schleich Parasaurolophus goes, but again, showing you that these two aren't too far off in the size department. So if you happen to have that other one right there, the older Schleich Parasaurolophus, you'll probably have a pretty good idea of the size of the new one. So this brand new 2022 Schleich Parasaurolophus is definitely another fun figure from Schleich, and a very different looking version of a Parasaurolophus than so many that I've seen before it. And I think because it's so different, it has kind of a fresh feel to it, a little bit unique, and I do actually quite like that. Schleich has always had kind of their own style of dinosaur, and this kind of follows along with that almost stylized version of a Schleich dinosaur, so that as well is something that really might appeal to some, maybe not to everyone. If you're not a big fan of the Schleich line, the kind of stylized versions won't always appeal to you, but I do really quite like the Schleich line. I've been a huge fan of them for a very long time, so I personally do always like that kind of stylized version of a Schleich figure, and this Parasaurolophus definitely sports that, but at the same time really does look quite nice as far as a very big, beefy kind of a Parasaurolophus. I feel like it's maybe a male due to the kind of reddish coloration there running along the back and the green crest being pretty, bright sort of. So I feel like this is maybe a very large, stocky male version of a Parasaurolophus. The detailing aspect of the model is really nicely done. It's absolutely as highly detailed as it gets, and that's something that you'll always find when it comes to a Schleich model. I'm often just completely flabbergasted by how much detail Schleich includes in their sculpts, and although their dinosaurs aren't always the absolute most accurate interpretations of the species that they represent, they are often some of the most highly detailed you'll find anywhere, and that's definitely what I see here with this Parasaurolophus. It is just completely detailed to the max. It also sports some really nice paintwork throughout, with that really nice reddish tone of color running along the spinal column and those slight variations of browns throughout the course of the body, as well as those dark browns that kind of splotch and stripe throughout. I really like that coloration way more than I thought I would here in hand. And then we have the nice green up there on the crest, and they've done a great job of applying washes throughout the course of the figure, like the dark wash through the majority of it, as well as that kind of tannish wash up there on the crest. So there is a lot of color variation throughout the entire figure, which also does, I think, help to give it a bit more of an appealing look, and at the same time a pretty striking look overall. So as a whole, I definitely like this. I feel like it's a pretty fun interpretation of a Parasaurolophus. Again, the fact that it looks a bit different than what you usually see as far as the Parasaurolophus goes kind of gives it a fresh feel in a way, and definitely a fun figure for the Schleich 2022 line. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on the Schleich website. So make sure you check that link, go buy this Parasaurolophus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe before you do. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.